Welcome to the Blow Mold Hospital. I've got an interesting project that I wanted to experiment a few ways with here. I've got some very brittle plastic, like potato chip brittle, on a product here that I had when I was a kid. It's called a Twinkle Twee, T-W-E-E instead of tree. And it sits on this base, 3 different colored flashing lights in it. And it has a unique pattern inside as it kind of flashes on and off. Well, I had one of these when I was a kid and I loved it, but unfortunately it got dropped, and it literally is potato chip brittle. A lot of these don't survive over the years. These were made in the early 60s. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to experiment on, number one, fixing some cracks and crevices that are broken on it, fixing or trying to add a layer of protection to the inside and outside of it to make it a little bit more stable, and then repairing some of the tips and things like that where it's cracked heavily. I want to give it a little stability so that it'll last for years. The first thing that I wanted to say is what I'm about to do is experimenting. I'm not sure if it's going to turn out really well, but I'm trying to add layers of thickness on both sides, and I'm going over the top. I'm experimenting on a couple of ways. So if you don't feel that this is something that you want to do, you don't have to do it. I'm just experimenting and showing you some options. So any comments about like, hey, this is too much, I realize it's too much because I'm trying to, again, try a few different ways. So hang on for a few minutes and help me go through this, and we'll see what happens. Alright, first I want to cover a couple of the things that I am going to use here, a couple of the products. First is just some simple paint brushes, and I'll show you why I need those in just a moment. If you've watched any of my other Blow Mold Hospital videos, you know that I love Gorilla Glue Epoxy Clear for plastic. Also, just some 70% isopropyl alcohol. Some PVA glue. I'm using Elmer's Glue All. And then some clear matte. I don't want it to be very shiny, but some clear matte cover. Basically to add a protection around the outside of it once I'm done. So this kind specifically says bonds with plastic. There's several out there that does that. And then some things like just some rubber bands and a few other things, but I'll show you how I use all of those going forward. So the first thing that I need to do is clean this. Again, this is 56-ish years old. It's got some dirt. I've already cleaned it once, but basically trying to get into all of these cracks and crevices is very, very hard, and that's where this brush comes in. This is ultra soft, ultra smooth, and the alcohol allowed me to put some in a bowl or a can and then just take this and literally paint alcohol through this. Allowed me to get into all the crevices and the cracks here and to go inside. I turned it inside out and washed the inside out as well. But this allows a really good cleaning. The alcohol strips away any oil or anything that's on the top, getting it ready to accept a coating that I'm going to be putting on it. But it also allows, again, like I said, clearing out those little tiny areas where normally like a Q-tip or something might be good, but it would take you hours to do. This allows a good covering really quickly, and really cleans it nicely. So now that I've cleaned it really well, I want to take some time and start stabilizing the cracks. There are quite a few of them that I've already had to do because, to be honest, when I got it, it was just one chip away from breaking, and down here to the bottom it actually did. When I was transporting it back home, I had about a 600-mile ride home, and it did get cracked one more time in that bottom piece there that you see where the holes are. It broke and it came off on one side, so I had to do some stability work on it just to get it to hold so it didn't fall apart further. So I still have a few cracks and breaks that I want to fix. First one that I really want to start attacking is this top portion. As you can see, there's several cracks that, and it's kind of peeling away at the top. I want to stabilize that. There's also a few cracks on the inside along some of these lines here that I'll just run some epoxy on. You can see one right there. But this top part, I'm going to try to work through, put a rubber band at the top, but after I put some epoxy up here to kind of hold that together, and then my hope is that this rubber band will pull all of this together up here to allow that tip to be stabilized. Again, those of you who've seen some of my videos before, you know that this Gorilla epoxy that dries clear is one of the things that I really like to use. So I'm mixing up a good bit of it here. And first I'm going to apply some to the outside here just to make sure that it sticks. And then I'm going to go from the inside to finish the rest. But this is where I want to make sure that this gets glued on the outside so it'll stick. Again, I'm not being 100% efficient with it, but I'm making sure that it's covered because it again dries clear. I just want to give it a smooth covering. Alright, so now I'm going to pull that a little tight here so that it will hold to get that on the outside there. A couple of rubber bands. Alright, I've got my Twinkle Twee all cleaned off with alcohol and got all the cracks and crevices cleaned up. So it's pretty good right now. Now I want to start the strengthening process. And why am I using PPA glue? PPA glue basically, I don't know the scientific part of it, but it turns when it dries. When it adheres to two different products like plastic or paper or whatever you're putting to. It basically turns into a plastic. So my theory is here that if I put a coating of PPA on the outside of it, and when it dries, it will add a thin layer of plastic to the outside, and I'm actually going to cover the inside as well. So again, I'm putting that theory to the test of the sandwiching plastic on the outside of it. So I can put this on with a brush, and when it dries, it actually will mold to the exact shape of this. And again, in theory, put a coating of plastic on each side. So let's give it a test. I'm going to squeeze some into a cup here that I've cut. The key with this too is if you stop for a while, make sure to clean out your brush because the glue will set up on your brush. But basically, this is the theory. Coat this with a clear, it's white going on, but as you know with glue, when it dries, it turns clear. So as I go through, I'm just going to fill every crack and crevice here. It'll add some texture, of course. It won't be smooth, but again, I would rather have it not as smooth as it originally was to be able to preserve it because, like I said, I want it to last for years and years and years. So just going to take my time, move through and fill in all the cracks and crevices. Make sure everything is covered. And the great thing about it being white before it dries is that I can easily see, do I have everything covered here? And I don't know if you can tell easily on the camera angle that I have right now, but the top is already starting to dry a little bit and turn a clear. Just a little bit, not all of it, but just a little bit. So as you see, this is my theory. when I was a kid, I really loved this thing. Every year, this was the first decoration. This is, again, not it. The one that we had when we were kids is long gone. But it was the favorite Christmas decoration every year. And I have 3 brothers, and we all just would always go down and get this one first to bring it up and light it up before we brought up the real Christmas tree. We loved it. So I was very excited to find this at a store, antique store. So it's kind of cool. So I'll post this whether it comes out good or bad. If my theory is not good, then I'll be sad that I've destroyed this thing. But I don't think I will. I think it'll come out changing the look of it a little bit because of the texture. But I think I will come out with a much stronger, longer lasting decoration. Alright, so rather than have you watch me do all of this, I'm going to coat the outside, and then as it dries, I'll come back and do the inside, and then I'll come back with the final coat with you all when I'm done. Alright, I finished touching it up with the glue. There's lots of glue on here, and I tried to put it fairly thick, but not too thick, just so that it doesn't add too much weight. But as you can imagine, the additional weight is, you can feel it pretty well, but you can start to see that it's drying out, and just the heavier areas where the glue is left is kind of still not clear yet. And I know that it's a little thick, and some of the little droplets like here will start to, I figure it's going to look like it's got ice or something on it. I'm not going to worry too much about the glue at the bottom as it kind of draws down. But I think like in this area right here that's drying, it's going to look pretty nice. But I'll let it finish drying and I'll be back. Okay, it's a few days after I put the glue over the inside and of course the outside of this Christmas decoration. Wanted to give it several days to cure. Again, I used the Elmer's Glue All PPA glue. Almost the whole bottle. There's a tad bit left. This was a 4-ounce bottle. So that's how much it took for this probably 18-inch item to cover everything on the outside and on the inside. Wanted to give an update on where we are. It looks amazing. It was super nice, easy to cover. Took a couple of hours to dry each time I coated it. Coated it once on the outside and once on the inside. But each time I did that, it took about an hour. Some spots took a little bit longer, but I wanted to let this cure for several days. And right now, I am extremely happy with the outcome. You can feel that it's just stronger. It's going to have much more durability. Still very brittle, but the durability is there. So, added the weight. There's weight to it because of the glue, but overall it's not super heavy. It just is a nice lightweight coating on the outside and the inside. So very happy with the outcome. So what's next to keep it from doing any further yellowing? I won't be putting it in the sun in the future, but as I mentioned, I'm going to be coating it in matte clear, which will give it some non-yellowing property and also the UV resistance. This will just help it to stay the same color that it is now and not hopefully have any further discoloration as this side over here has. But super happy with what's coming out, and I will show you next what the coating will look like once we get the matte cover on it. So here's my finished product. I've gone from cleaning it to gluing it with epoxy on the inside to where there are cracks and things that had existed to strengthen those, to putting a layer of PPA glue, and then finally spraying it with a clear polyurethane UV protective covering. So I'm finished. My results are great. I think I'm really happy and would do this again, exactly this way again, just to make sure that I can preserve these things for a very, very long time. But a couple of things. I have a broken top up here, even though it's all glued back together and very sturdy. Just to hide some of those things, I'm going to slip a little gold ball up there to the top to give it a little bit of just decoration to hide the imperfections. But overall it's good. I would highly recommend doing this if you have some brittle plastic. Thanks for joining me on the Blow Mold Hospital, and I will light it up for you in just a moment.